moon. Still, that appears to be plenty.
Astronaut Aldrin is still deploying the solar panels on the seismic experiment, which means it'll only operate while there's sunlight on that part. The seismic stations to go up in the future will have what they call a snap generator. That's a nuclear generator to power them. It'll go day and night.
Neil, this is Houston, over.
Neil, this is Houston, over. Hey, go ahead, Houston.
Roger, we've been looking at your consumables, and you're in good shape. Subject to your concurrence, we'd like to extend the duration of the EVA 15 minutes from nominal. We will still give Buzz a hack at 10 minutes prior for heading in. Your current elapsed time is 2 plus 12, over.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Roger, out.
That 212 is the time expended on the PLSS.
This is Houston. If you're still in the vicinity of the PSE, could you get a photograph of the ball level, over?
I'll do that, but... Right, we'll get a photograph of that. Houston, what time would you estimate we could allow for the documented sample, over? Oh, shoot. I believe the ball is right in the middle now. Wonderful. Take a picture before it moves.
Neil, this is Houston. We're estimating about 10 minutes for the documented sampling, over.
One of the astronauts now has moved back to the base of the limb.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Columbia, this is Houston, over. Go ahead, Houston, Columbia.
Roger, I'd like you to terminate charging battery Bravo at 111 plus 15, over.
Coming out right now.
Roger.
The ease with which they move around on the lunar surface, I think, may have helped prolong the life of the PL, the PLIS, so that they could add that extra 15 minutes. Aldrin will spend 10 minutes making this documented rock sample.
Buzz, this is Houston. You've got about 10 minutes left now prior to commencing your EVA termination activities, over.
Termination activities, over. Roger, I understand.
That means we're getting close to the end now of this walk on the moon. Another indication that everything is going very well with this Apollo 11 mission.
The forgotten astronaut, Michael Collins.
I bet he's not forgotten by Armstrong and Aldrin.
No.
Houston, Tranquility Base. This is Houston. The passive seismic experiment has been uncaged, and we're observing short period oscillations in it. Over.
Lunar module flyers Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin still moving about on the surface of the moon, heading toward the end.
Neil Armstrong has been on the surface now about an hour and 50 minutes.
The time on their portable life support systems, the elapsed time thus far, 2 hours, 17 minutes. Aldrin out of camera range now, off with one of the experiments. Armstrong standing at the base of the limb.
Aldrin just reported a few moments ago that the seismic experiment had been uncaged. In other words, it was in working order, and that he was observing oscillation data. That the seismic instrument was, in fact, picking up vibrations.
It is hoped that this instrument will be sensitive enough to pick up the footsteps of the men as they walk about on the lunar surface, transmit that signal back to Earth. We'll have to wait for full confirmation of that kind of sensitivity, though.
Aldrin just reappeared behind the LEM, coming in from left to right. He's behind the LEM, out of view now, but as he came into view, he seemed to be hopping in that kangaroo fashion again. But now he comes around on the right side of the LEM and is walking in more normal fashion, although it's still it's sort of a gait. It's a loose gait that.
He weighs about 30 pounds. I mean, of course, with all the equipment on him, he weighs quite a bit more, but he weighs about 30 pounds up there.
In the foreground, Buzz Aldrin is collecting a core tube sample.
I hope you're watching how hard I have to hit this into the ground to the tune of about 5 inches, Houston.
Roger.
It almost looks wet. Got it, sample. Wait a minute. Cable? Yeah, cut the cable again.
Neil and Buzz, this is Houston. We'd like you to...
You're right. Turn to your right. Not clear? Not quite.
Neil, this is Houston. We'd like you all to get 2 core tubes and the solar wind experiment. 2 core tubes and the solar wind, over.
That means they're beginning to wrap things up. The solar wind experiment is to be taken back with them when they leave the lunar surface. It was one of the first experiments set up, and its value is dependent directly on time of exposure.
Both astronauts now back at the base of the LEM.
The core tubes provide material.
Get the next one. Maybe you can turn away the box a little bit. Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Looks like they're preparing to activate that conveyor belt to lift the rock boxes and other samples back into the equipment bay.
They walked out on the moon on the 20th of July, and looks like they'll walk back in the spacecraft on the 21st of July.
Which is Moon Day.
Moon Day. And,
Monday.
you know,
Monday is Moon Day. That's the. That would be some.
Buzz, this is Houston. You have approximately 3 minutes until you must commence your EVA termination activities. Over.
Roger, understand.
Columbia, this is Houston. Approximately 1 minute to LOS. Over.
1 minute. Columbia, roger.
And do you plan on commencing your sleep on the backside this pass? If so, we'll disable uplink to you while we're talking to the LEM. Over.
Negative that. Houston, were you able to record in a documentary way where the two tube samples were taken?
Negative.
Now, I didn't get a stereo pair of those tubes, but they're right in the vicinity of the solar wind.
Neil, this is Houston. After you've got the core tubes and the solar wind, anything else that you can throw into the box would be acceptable.
I do. Cap was right. I got the cap. Got the cap? They're both good caps on around. Okay. And you want to pick up some stuff and I'll get these receptacles? Throw the solar wind in.
Buzz Aldrin retrieving the solar wind experiment.
It's Aldrin. Looks as if they're packing up, getting ready to leave.
Buzz, this is Houston. It's about time for you to start your EVA closeout activities.
Roger.
They've been on their life support system. On their life support systems, 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Lunar Module astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin now have been on their portable life support systems for more than 2 hours, 25 minutes, and are now still moving about in the vicinity of the lunar module on the moon's surface.
Neil appears to be picking up rocks to the right of the screen.
Neil and Buzz, this is Houston. I'd like to remind you of the close-up camera magazine before you start up the ladder, Buzz.
Okay. Got that over with you, Neil? Now that close-up camera is underneath the mesa. I'll have to pick it up with the stock. And I'm picking up several pieces of really vesicular rock out here now. You didn't get anything in those environmental samples, did you? Not yet. I don't think we'll have time.
Roger, Neil and Buzz. Let's press on with getting the close-up camera magazine and closing out of the sample return container. You're running a little low on time.
Roger.
We want to keep a good margin in those portable life support systems.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
The two great gambling meccas of America. Chronicle visits Las Vegas and Atlantic City here on the A&E Cable Network.
Tomorrow.
How well you carry yourself in business often depends on what you carry in business. Cambridge Business Wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge Business Wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
These kindergartners are using an IBM learning program called Writing to Read. Through computers and other tools, it's helping children across the country learn to read as much as 2 grade levels above the national average.
I see a tiger. A tiger sees me. Tigers live in the zoo. The end.
To learn more, write IBM, Box 446, Montvale, New Jersey.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Some drinks have a dark side, a taste that may leave you thirsty. But all-natural Sundance is just fruit juices and sparkling water. No added sugar, no dark side. A refreshingly bright idea. So if you're looking for delicious taste that really satisfies, reach for all-natural Sundance Sparkler. With so much sparkling goodness in every bottle, Sundance puts refreshment in a whole new light.
3, 2, 1, 0. On the moon.
They will still have to remain on those portable life support systems after they get back into the LEM until they can repressurize that cabin.
That's exactly right. So this EVA is not over yet, even though they get back into the lunar module and seal the hatch.
Okay, can you quickly stick this in my pocket, Neil, and I'll head on up the ladder. I'll hold it. You open the pocket up. Drop that, fella. Okay, just hold it right there. Okay, let the pocket go. Stop close. Got it. Okay. Adios, amigos. Hey. Anything more before I head on up, Bruce?
Negative. Head on up the ladder, Buzz.
Head on up, Buzz.
That white dot right above the horizon on the right is a phosphorus spot from the TV converter in the Park Station in Australia.
The extravehicular activity, the walk on the moon, is drawing to a close. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin now is up the ladder of the LEM, about to move back into the lunar module. Astronaut Armstrong still on the lunar surface, moving about in the vicinity of the modularized equipment storage assembly.
Right there. Okay.
Two men talking to each other now as they start the final phase of their dramatic walk on the moon's surface. They have been on their portable life support systems now for 2 hours, 30 minutes. Aldrin standing on the LEM porch, as it's called.
I think you can reach this hook that's hanging over here. You might entertain the idea of sending up the second one that way.
Aldrin has gone back into the LEM, is going back into the LEM to assist in the stowing of the rock boxes and other paraphernalia they're bringing back. Armstrong still on the surface.
Okay, I'm heading on in. Okay. And I'll get the LEC already for the first rock box.
Aldrin now moving back into the lunar module.
They use a conveyor belt system to hoist the rock boxes into the stowage bay.
Neil's been on the surface a few minutes longer than 2 hours. Buzz, approximately 20 minutes less than that.
Neil, this is Houston. Did the Hasselblad magazine go up on that sample return container also?
Sample return container also. I've got the Hasselblad magazine hooked to the SRC now, yeah.
Roger.
The walk on the moon by astronauts Armstrong and Aldrin drawing to a close. One of the men back in the lunar module, the other, Armstrong, still on the surface, gathering up the final items.
How you doing, Buzz? I'm okay.
Mission Control going through a checklist, reminding them, did you bring along the camera or the film pack? Did you bring this? Did you bring that? Did you document where you got the rock core? Just checking off, making sure that they bring back all they intend to bring back.
Some of the things that they will leave behind there will be, of course, the American flag made of nylon, plaque that says, "Here, man," from the
LEC.
Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon July 1969 A.D. They'll also have microfilmed messages from leaders of foreign nations. And, of course, the assortment of space junk from their overshoes and 2-ton engine of the first stage, the descent stage of the LEM.
Well,
looked like a rather bad picnic when they get through there.
Man's capacity to litter bug is now extended beyond the Earth.
Armstrong's still on the surface, moving about.
Well, he's working the conveyor belt right now. He's sending everything up to Buzz, who is inside, and they're working that up, sort of like a clothesline. And put something, hook it on, up goes this sample, hook it on, and there goes this camera. Gets everything back inside that way.
There had been a plan to put a big dish antenna out in case the picture from the lunar surface were not of sufficient quality.
Okay, that's got it clear.
Transferring the sample containers into the LEM cabin now.
Uh-oh. Camera came off. I mean, the film pack came off.
As far as I know, that antenna was not necessary. Did you hear anything about it being deployed?
It was not necessary.
The picture's been of excellent quality all the way through.
Okay, just ease it down now. Don't pull so hard on it. All right, let it go. Hey, you're getting that. I've got to get this camera. Okay, this one's in, no problem. Okay, stand by a second.
Neil, this is Houston. Request an EMU check, over.
Houston, EMU check, over. Roger, got 3.8. And I got 54 on the O2 and no flags. And my flow is in.
Mission Control apparently a little concerned about the length of this extravehicular activity, and Armstrong now giving readouts on his EMU, extravehicular mobility unit. They want to make sure he's has plenty of oxygen and everything is all right to continue his activities outside the lunar module. Armstrong's still working that conveyor belt, getting everything inside that has to be taken back.
I'm sure if Armstrong thought there were any question at all that his consumables were even approaching any sort of red line, he would drop whatever he was doing and hasten to re-enter the LEM without any waste of time.
The Lick Observatory in California reports a return on the laser experiment.
Neil and Buzz, for your information, your consumables remain in good shape. Out.
In good shape. Roger. That's coming, Neil. Okay, I've got one side hooked up to the second box, and I got the film back on. Okay, good.
Moonwalk, as it happened, will continue in a moment.
This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. When you're choosing your business wardrobe, selecting everything down to the last detail, don't forget the last detail. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
The worst job, that photo match on. Where do these people take breaks? What, do they shut that window and duck down in there? Have you ever gotten out of the car to check? Hey, are you in there? You know they look through your pictures. I went up there one time, I didn't even have to give her my name. She went, here.
Comedy. The funniest at their funniest. Nobody brings it home like HBO.
Witness the final events of Apollo 11's astonishing adventure as they happened 20 years ago. Premiering July 24th.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
We help more Americans go to college, and we issue more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We also serve millions of customers in every major marketplace worldwide. We're Citicorp and Citibank, America's largest financial services company. Whatever financial success you hope to achieve, whether it's business or personal, we can help you do it, and do it better than anyone else. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
3, 2, 1, 0. On America.
In this laser reflector mirror, they ground the glass to within a half a second of arc. Now, this is a year ago, for example, the state of the art grinding glass was about 1 second of arc. So it's extremely accurate. Now, if you want to go in figuring out that, you can figure out the millionths of degree of span that you have and accuracy of going out and coming back, and it's really accurate.
It looks like down here. I think my watch stopped now. Hit it. No, it didn't either. Second in. Okay, if you can just kind of hold it, but I think I can do the pulling. Okay.
There they go, sending up another box.
That
This
conveyor belt's quite an operation.
Stand by a minute, let me move back.
Armstrong now moving back away from the lunar module with his end of this conveyor belt. As it was so aptly described a little while ago, it's much like a clothesline contraption set up on a pulley.
Easy on the hatch now.
But instead of clothes, lunar rocks are being cranked right up to the hatch
Okay, I'll get it there.
in the lunar module, and astronaut Aldrin is standing there to retrieve them.
And I'll
Place the rock boxes, etc., inside.
Just a second.
Fasten them down.
Have a little more.
Preparation for the ascent stage of the lunar module to lift off tomorrow.
2 hours, 40 minutes on the PLSSs.
2 hours, 40 minutes on the PLSSs, which was the programmed timeline. Now, they did extend that an extra 15 minutes earlier.
Buzz? Okay, it's unhooked. How about that package out of your sleeve? Get that? No. Okay, I'll get it. I'll get up there. Run it now? That's all. Okay? Okay.
Armstrong now at the ladder. And appears to be wiping his feet.
Neil, this is Houston. Did you get the Hasselblad magazine?
Yes, I did. And we got about, I'd say 20 pounds of carefully selected, if not documented, samples.
Houston, roger. Well done. Out.
At the second box.
Unofficial time off the surface at 1:11:37:32.
Now start arching your back. That's good. Plenty of room. Plenty of room. All right, arch your back a little. Your head's up against. Out, soft, roll right, just a little bit. Okay, down. And in good shape. Thank you. I'm bumping now. Now you're clear. You're rubbing up against me a little bit. Okay. Turn. All right, that's right. Turn to the left.
Both men now inside the lunar module. Their walk on the surface of the moon concluded.
Now move your foot and I'll get the hatch.
Sounds like they're moving furniture around in there, doesn't it?
Yes, I think definitely that was the sound of the hatch door being closed.
Okay.
They are still relying on their portable life support system to provide them with their oxygen because the LEM has not been repressurized.
Okay, the hatch is closed and latched. And we're up and secure. Okay.
Once again, the picture we see is lifeless. We cannot see the men inside.
Now we close the feed water valve. Close. And I got your plus antenna stood. Fine. Okay, feed water valve closed.
About an hour and 10 minutes from now, they'll reopen the hatch door and throw out all the unnecessary equipment, their plates and all, everything, and leave them on the surface of the moon there.
And I suppose we'll go through another period of distorted radio transmissions as their antenna click against the sides of the LEM as they're going about their chores inside that very crowded vehicle.
Oh, yeah. Snap the good night bucket.
Yeah, they'll check one another's equipment over and then repressurize the cabin here so that they can get rid of all the stuff.
This is Houston. Go ahead. You're cutting out, Neil. You're not readable. I understand you said something about contingency sample container on the SN engine. We're not reading you, Neil. Buzz, buzz. This is Houston. Do you read over? Tranquility Base, this is Houston. We're reading neither one of you, but standing by.
Well, they were having that trouble inside a while ago, bumping against metal. Apparently, they're maneuvering around now, getting all set up to repressurize.
Mission Control trying to clear up voice communication with the flyers.
They spent 2 hours, 13 minutes, 12 seconds. Man's first excursion on the moon, on the moon surface. Both astronauts now back inside LEM.
There is a communications difficulty now between the astronauts and mission control. The ground controllers trying to clear it up.
Same kind of shorting out that we experienced, or they experienced, and we heard when they were preparing to move
Pressure coming up about 2.789 pounds. Up to 3 now.
We know everything is working inside.
The difficulty, quite obviously, only with the voice transmission, not with telemetry, because they are getting a clear indication. The LEM cabin is being repressurized.
Once they get the cabin repressurized and can discard their portable life support garments, why then they will be back on the internal communication systems of Eagle, and that communication problem should be cleared up.
They show the cabin at 4.8 now.
That's about where they want it.
You were talking a while ago about what a lifeless picture that is there without the astronauts in it. It is. The American flag on the moon's surface there doesn't move at all. Airless. Nothing.
And how quickly we got used to the fact that they were there, and to just accept as almost commonplace human movement around the surface of that forbidding and barren and desolate-looking stretch of desert.
Still having trouble with the voice transmission from the lunar astronauts who are now back in the lunar module with the hatch sealed. The lunar module cabin being repressurized. But as yet, no voice transmission because the signal breaks up. No understandable voice transmission, we should say.
I wonder if perhaps the full emotion of this moment for them, for Aldrin and Armstrong, might not come sometime much later, after they have returned to Earth, after they have gone through the quarantine period, after they have returned to Houston. The plaudits are all past them. And Neil's wife says, hey, go out and empty the garbage, will you? And he goes out at night, and he's dropping the garbage into the can. He looks up in the heavens, and there's that big, beautiful moon shining down on it. Maybe then it might hit him. What am I doing? Dropping garbage. I've been there.
I don't know. Somebody's got to empty the garbage.
Sitting here looking at that picture, and that desert scene and all, you know. Seems to me a Jeep should come sailing across now saying, get out of here, you're in a classified area or something, you know.
Yeah. Once again, the two men are back in the lunar module. The hatch has been sealed. The cabin has been repressurized. But we're out of voice contact. There seems to be a breakup of signal between astronauts Armstrong and Aldrin and mission control. Telemetry data indicates the cabin pressure is back up to about normal, almost 5 pounds per square inch.
LEM's systems look good. Crewmen should now be transferring back to Tranquility Base's environmental control system, and later we'll switch to the vehicle's communication system. We estimate it'll be another 10 to 15 minutes before they're on the LEM communication system.
And if we have learned anything in the past from the way Armstrong and Aldrin conduct their activities, they won't be talking too much while they are in this busy period of switching from their portable life support system to and getting the Eagle environment control system functioning.
Lunar module flyers Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin are back in the LEM. After their walk on the surface of the moon, the LEM hatch has been sealed, the cabin has been repressurized.
Well, we can certainly say that the EVA, the extravehicular activity, has ended. They spent 2 hours, 13 minutes, 12 seconds on the surface of the moon, are back in Eagle, and are back relying on Eagle's systems to keep them alive.
In the background, a bit of static from mission control as ground controllers here wait for the men to move on to the communications system in the LEM itself rather than in the portable life support system.
And a replica of the American flag on the lunar surface is now being erected here in the control center.
That word from mission control.
I saw that flag in the corner over there a while ago. I was wondering about that.
And a replica of the plaque on Tranquility Base has been hung on the wall.
Altogether, inside and outside their moonship, Armstrong and Aldrin spent nearly a day in this strange, literally unearthly place. They did what they came to do.
In the 21st hour came the last real test. If Eagle's booster failed on liftoff, Armstrong and Aldrin would be condemned to drift for eternity on a tranquil sea of alien dust 250,000 miles from home. Again, utilizing film not seen until after Apollo 11's return to Earth, here is Eagle's liftoff from Tranquility Base on the surface of the moon, July 21st, 1969.
Tranquility Base, Houston. Guidance recommendation is pings, and you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. 7, 6, 5, port stage, engine arm ascent. Beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up.
Liftoff from the moon, perfect. Ahead, rendezvous with the command ship, a return to Earth, and the adulation of the world for 3 modest men, unlikely achievers of the impossible dream.
2,600 feet altitude. Eagle Houston, you're going right down the track. Everything's great.
The rendezvous chase in which Eagle would catch up with Columbia would take more than 3 hours. Eagle and Columbia would rejoin. Armstrong and Aldrin would crawl through a connecting tunnel and rejoin Collins. Half a day later, Apollo 11 would break out of lunar gravity and head for home.
NBC promoted its television coverage of the moonwalk with the line, "The longest journey begins with a single step." The step, of course, was the one taken by Neil Armstrong. Yet, in a sense, that step was not a beginning, but one in an astounding progression of adventures in space. How can we think of Apollo 11 without thinking of visionaries like Copernicus and Galileo, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, Robert Goddard, Wernher von Braun, or the multitude of travelers, Gagarin, Grissom, Glenn, Christa McAuliffe. All of them have been part of a continuum that extends back for centuries and will continue on into the future. And in that continuum, in which all may never be said and done, the one step that will probably stand as the single most dramatic will be the giant leap taken on a warm summer night 20 years ago, when Earth first landed a man on the moon. I'm Edwin Newman for the A&E Cable Network. See you on the afternoon of July 24th, when we'll bring you the splashdown of Apollo 11 as it happened.
Altitude 4,200. Houston, you're a go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. Top alarm. 1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm. We're go. Same time. We're go. Lights on. 6. Down 2.5. At 40 feet, down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward, just into the right a little. 6, down 1/2. 30 seconds forward. Okay. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world.
That's it. Proceed. Feet per second up. 500 pitch over.
Speed altitude.
Eagle Houston, you're going right down the track. Everything's great.
Next week on A&E, Wild World of the East anchors off the coast of Japan for a rare glimpse of the great blue heron. Next
100-228-2787. Get your sturdy canvas tote bag worth $5, free with your paid order. Get American Artist magazine and a free gift. Call now.
411 should be on Main Chute.
Every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
Eagle Houston, you're going right down the track. Everything's great.
All three inside the helicopter.
Hello, I'm Edwin Newman for the A&E Cable Network. This is the voyage of Apollo 11, as it happened, Part 3, the Splashdown. On July 16th, 1969, the world watched in wonder as a great silver needle pulling a golden thread of fire stitched its way through the clouds, reaching for the moon. 4 days later, on July 20th, when Neil Armstrong's rib-soled space shoe made its first impression in the lunar dust, it symbolized the stunning success of humanity's greatest adventure. Before we dive into the final phase of that remarkable voyage as it happened, here's another look at the liftoff and moonwalk, events that crystallize as no others can television's ability to make immediate humanity's greatest moments as they happen.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading. Plus 30 seconds.
Roll complete and a pitches program.
Altitude's 2 miles.
Oh, 11 Houston, you're good at 1 minute.
We're go. Same type. We're go. Lights on. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. At 40 feet, down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward. Drift into the right a little. Down 1/2. 30 seconds forward. Just. Okay. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world.
Engine arm ascent, proceed. Channel, beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up. 5 for the pitch over.
2,600 feet altitude.
See it.
Eagle Houston, you're going right down the track. Everything's great.
The summer of 1969, the summer of America's miracle on the moon, was one of the most eventful in American history. It was a summer of protest and political unrest. It was the summer of Woodstock Nation. It was the summer when an amazing team called the New York Mets was working a miracle of its own. During the days when Apollo 11 was fulfilling the promise of President Kennedy, his brother Ted was making headlines because of an automobile accident at Chappaquiddick. The Apollo mission itself, while realizing an age-old dream, was the subject of much controversy. The astronomical expense of the venture led many to question our priorities, pointing to poverty, pollution, and hunger as far more pressing needs. Reactions to the moon mission embodied all the contrasts of a nation magnificent in its achievement and haunted by its world policies. Still, no matter how ambivalent some people felt about the politics of the event, it was difficult for anyone not to feel inspired by the cosmic significance of the act. While the men of Apollo 11 soared through space and walked on another planet, the Earth was united in wonder at their accomplishment and in prayer for their safe return. Television made it possible for all of us to be there as it happened. You are about to see NBC's actual coverage of Apollo 11's re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, its splashdown in the Pacific, and its recovery by the USS Hornet. These are the final events of an astonishing adventure as they happened on July 24th, 1969.
Yes, we see it. We see it. Here it is. Apollo 11 coming right down toward the prime recovery zone. It isn't red anymore because the skies are that light, momentarily behind a puffy gray cloud, but it's there.
Apollo 11 should be on main chutes now.
And the flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
Word from Mike Collins inside the spacecraft. He says the crew is excellent. The crew is excellent. The helicopter designated as the retrieval helicopter is equipped with biological isolation garments for the swimmers who will go to the capsule and throw the garments inside the capsule where the astronauts will put them on. They'll hoist the operator protective garment, the 2 7-man life rafts, decontamination dispensers, and additional scuba tanks for the swim team, all part of the prime recovery helicopter, Recovery 1.
We will continue to monitor for any conversation between the spacecraft and recovery forces, but we will not initiate a call from now on to the spacecraft from the control center.
Mission Control Houston has now stepped out of the picture, and it is now up to the recovery forces out in the Pacific. They are in control of the Apollo operation from now on.
We might add it. Everything is running right on schedule, so to speak, here, about where they thought it would be in the timeline after landing, as the whole mission has gone. And I don't know, really, with the one step remaining to get the astronauts safely on board the aircraft carrier Hornet, that maybe we should stop, pause, and realize that man has been to the moon and returned safely. That President John F. Kennedy's goal has been met, and in this decade.
You know, going back to the early days of Mercury, splash distances were so far apart from where they were, and to think that man has come 250,000 miles through space and been able to land within 15 miles of a courier is almost unbelievable within itself. And of course, you have to also take into consideration that possibly the carrier was off the target.
But the helicopters were there immediately. They were never out of sight of the spacecraft. The helicopter recovery units were there, and the frogmen were in the water almost immediately, getting the flotation collar around while waiting for the Hornet to draw up alongside. So that's Lieutenant Clancy Heidelberg is there outside the spacecraft in his raft. They will open the hatch, and Heidelberg will throw the 3 isolation garments inside the spacecraft, which the astronauts will don before emerging and being taken back to the carrier. Then, of course, aboard the Hornet, they will go into a portable quarantine unit, sort of a house trailer arrangement there on the carrier, and will remain there until that house trailer can return them to Houston Control, or Houston Lunar Recovery Laboratory.
There are, to set the scene for you, there are 3 helicopters hovering over the spacecraft. It's just past Dome slightly there in the recovery area. The aircraft carrier Hornet is now approximately 4 miles away and is closing within range here to bring the astronauts aboard shortly.
Full rescue procedures now underway.
Two of the spacemen are out of their capsule.
Difficulty securing the hatch, and one of the astronauts is helping him.
The sea is a little rough here. 3 to 6 foot waves was the forecast. And as we look at the spacecraft bobbing in the water, it's easy to tell that the seas are at least that. Winds about 18 knots. The wind's strong enough, in fact, that they pulled the spacecraft over upon landing with its sharp end down, and for a few minutes there, until it was righted by the flotation balloons, there was a second loss of communication. The aircraft carrier moving in closely now with the helicopters overhead.
Lieutenant Heidelberg spraying the hatchway on the spacecraft now.
I have sprayed on the forward portion of the command.
All 3 of them now in the raft, right alongside the space capsule, 100 feet away at the end of a tether, and with an anchor to stabilize it is another raft with the frogmen who had installed the flotation collar. Now the 3 astronauts and the big man, the man who tossed them their biological isolation garments, Lieutenant Clancy Heidelberg, all 4 men in the raft, decontaminating each other, scrubbing each other down with disinfectant, and it could be a rather comical sight, and I should imagine that they'll have to be very careful that they don't flip that raft over. We had a flip over on Apollo 9, and they're going to be quite agile there in getting themselves scrubbed down without and still maintaining their balance. Once the decontamination process has been completed, then the astronauts will be raised into the helicopter, while the big man, Heidelberg, will stay behind and deflate the raft and deflate the or rather discard the chemical instruments, and the whole thing will sink into the ocean. And that'll be the end of that raft and the end of the decontaminants.
Once the astronauts are back in the helicopter and the big man has completed his decontamination proceedings, he removes his garment, the one designed to keep bugs from getting in. We'll leave it on the raft. We'll leave all the chemical materials. He will then sink the raft with all of its implements, and will swim to the second raft that is at the end of this 100-foot tether. And then that's how they will get back to their ship. The crew on the helicopter that is standing by is piloted by Don S. Jones of Madison, Wisconsin. Lieutenant J.G. Bruce Johnson of Bremerton, Washington is the co-pilot. And the two crewmen standing at the open door that and operating the winches and hoist. These crewmen are Chief Petty Officer Norval Wood of Carmi, Illinois, and Chief Petty Officer Stanley Robnett of Cortales, New Mexico. First astronaut climbing into the net. There he goes. First astronaut on his way to the helicopter. We don't know which one it is. We just don't know yet which one it is. He's suspended from the helicopter, hovering over the raft, 40 feet above. The helicopter's 40 feet above. There are two men inside the helicopter operating the winch, and to help the astronaut, Chief Petty Officer Norval Wood and Chief Petty Officer Stanley Robnett. The first astronaut now inside the helicopter. We don't know which one. 40 feet separate the helicopter and the spacecraft, the surface of the water. Number 2 astronaut now going up. But again, it is not possible to identify the astronauts in the order in which they are going into the spacecraft, or into the helicopter. Swimmer, Lieutenant Clancy Hadelberg, remains in the raft. Third and final astronaut now in midair on the 40-foot lift into the helicopter. He's just suspended in midair there, sitting there in pendulum fashion. Now it's the hoist is operating again. Now he's almost to the doorway. And the third astronaut is inside the helicopter. All three now can return to the Hornet. All three of them wearing their special biological garments.
The third astronaut is now in the helicopter. The door is closed, and the helicopter is going to come back to the ship now. So the astronauts have been to the moon and back, and they've come through the last dangerous part of the flight, which was the re-entry. And it's all over now, but going into quarantine.
For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
This program is brought to you in part by Citicorp and by Cambridge Businesswear.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge Businesswear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. When you're choosing your business wardrobe, selecting everything down to the last detail, don't forget the last detail. Cambridge Businesswear from Meade. As important to the way you look is the clothes you wear.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
Patty Schoenfeld is deaf, but an IBM computer lets her talk on the phone. Art Sweet is almost blind, but can read a bank statement. And Madge Pentecost has trouble using her arms, but uses a computer by aiming an infrared beam. IBM provides information about special equipment like this, so more people with disabilities can use their abilities. Write IBM Box C-1030, Atlanta, Georgia.
As it happened, July 24th, 1969, now continues.
You know, I think we ought to mention right here, Ron, that we are about 906 statute miles southwest of Hawaii, moving up a couple of hundred miles along the track from the original splashdown point, which means that we're a good deal closer to Pearl Harbor than we would be otherwise. In fact, we're about 10 hours ahead of the point where we would be at this time if we'd adhered to the original schedule. And there had been some talk during the night here on the Hornet, as you know, Ron, that perhaps we might make Pearl Harbor by Friday night instead of Saturday morning. But the last I heard from NASA officials was that the original schedule would be followed, and the captain plans to have the carrier tied up at Berth Bravo in Pearl Harbor at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. All three astronauts now on board helicopter number 66.
The helicopter is loitering out there a bit, as Commander Jones said it would. This is to give the two crew members in the back a chance to come up forward and take off their isolation garments, and leaving in the back of the helicopter only Dr. Carpentier and the two astronauts.
This will probably be the photo chopper coming in. They're generally the first to come in. Wheel around in that wide circle, and they'll make a formation and swim one chopper that still has frogmen aboard will come up tight on Commander Jones's wing, just as a precaution.
And swim two, Pete, will just stay out there, babysitting, as they say, with the swimmers who dropped into the water alongside the command module, who helped in the recovery of the astronauts. They will stay with the command module until it is alongside the starboard side of the carrier and is about to be brought up onto the number 3 elevator. Then they will climb aboard the carrier in cargo nets. Renewed signs down here on the hangar deck of the presidential presence. Secret Service men are reappearing on the hangar deck.
Recovery 1 has a green deck. Beginning to rain up here. The president has a overhang on that bridge, so he's not getting wet.
We believe the president may have moved off the bridge, possibly on his way down.
It's only a very short trip.
Oh, there he is. He's moved aft, and he's back to the Admiral's Bridge, just outside Flag Flood. No baseball caps this time, and no handshakes. These astronauts headed for weeks of isolation. Fantastic event. Papa Camino, Ohio. A man from Montclair, New Jersey. Walk on another planet. And their partner. This incredible adventure.
Recovery complete. Shut down.
pilots. With their 100% oxygen masks on, that's their section. Pretty much isolated themselves from the astronauts back, however. Two crewmen, as Dallas said, are wearing protective gear. There goes the band. We will probably have a musical salute as they lower 66 to the hangar deck. Well, you can't say the Navy isn't ecumenical. They're playing the Air Force song. Of course, Commander Neil Armstrong is a civilian, but he once was a Navy man. However, you do have the other two members of the crew, Air Force men, Buzz Aldrin, full colonel, Mike Collins, lieutenant colonel, both graduates not of the Air Force Academy, but the United States Military Academy at West Point.
Keith, I don't know if you noticed, but almost as soon as the helicopter landed, a chief ran out and stuck a third symbol of a spacecraft on the nose.
Oh, we got 3 decals now, yeah.
And also they radioed from the helicopter to the bridge. Now it's Hornet +3. That's the motto of this trip, and you see buttons all over the ship. In other words, all the men who went out with the Hornet are coming back +3 more, the 3 astronauts.
Old number 66. It's got Apollo decal for Apollo 8, Apollo 10, now Apollo 11. And no other helicopter can make that statement.
That was Chief Bradley, the line chief of Helicopter Squadron 4, who ran out and put that other spacecraft symbol on, and also a sign saying Hornet +3.
You can't see in the back there. It's just too dark through that window. Dr. D, he's talking. NASA Recovery Chief John Stonecipher, his deputy, and Ben James are on the elevator. It's always Dr. Stoken who leaped forward to pump their hands when they came out of the helicopter. Not this time.
There you see a close-up of the new symbol. Apollo 8, Apollo 10, and Apollo 11. President Nixon seems genuinely moved by this moment. And the crew's getting out, 3 of them anyhow. They leave 1 man in the helicopter, as they say, to ride the brakes. It's a rule on helicopters that you don't move a helicopter unless somebody's there with their foot on the brake in case it starts rolling toward the edge.
Number 3 elevator will be leaving in 1 minute.
And down here on the hangar deck, all's in readiness for the big moment. Number 3 elevator on the port side is still in the raised position. No, it's down now. Down now. I couldn't see from my point. It's now down, and the tractor is being moved back to haul the helicopter off the number 2 elevator and back here to its position alongside the mobile quarantine facility. The band's still playing joyously up on the flight deck.
President Nixon is still on the flag bridge. We expect he'll be coming down soon.
Here comes the number 66 being hauled inboard from number 2 elevator very slowly by the tractor. The procedure is for the tractor to pull it straight across the ships, and it will then be backed by the tractor. So it's being pulled now with the nose forward in order to move it around in the correct position. There it goes. Now the tail of number 66 is pointing aft along the hangar deck.
Splashdown, as it happened, will continue in a moment.
How well you carry yourself in business often depends on what you carry in business. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
I'm Bob Knoll. My official title is Head of Auto Testing for Consumer Reports magazine, but I really work for you. And there are over 200 people who work for you at Consumer Reports. We test and report on everything from toothpaste to TVs. Right now is a good time to try Consumer Reports because you can get a free trial issue with no strings attached. Here are the details.
Call now for your free trial issue of Consumer Reports, the magazine that gives you all the pros and cons of a product, including price. Call for your free trial issue now, then decide. When the bill arrives, pay it and get 11 more issues, 12 in all, including the annual buying guide issue, for just $18. Or write cancel on the bill and owe nothing. If you do subscribe, you'll also get 2 free gifts: the new Medicine Show, updated and revised, and the 1989 buying guide issue.
So put Consumer Reports to work for you. Call now.
Call now for Consumer Reports.
Call 1-800-822-9800, 1-800-822-9800.
The flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
Astronauts still inside. They're holding the tail back. This is a standard procedure when the helicopter is being...
Dallas, the president, we believe, has left the flag bridge. At least he's not out there leaning over any longer.
Right.
And the gaggle of photographers seems to be following inside.
It's possible that the president's schedule at this point may indicate some little departure from what had been projected originally. We've been speculating all along that the president wouldn't just stay up there on the flag bridge all this while, and he may move somewhere else in the ship. But he's not expected down here again for about 40 minutes. That will give Dr. Carpentier, the astronaut's physician, time to perform some initial medical tests on the astronauts. But there's no doubt that they're in good condition on the basis of what we've heard already. And after about 40 minutes, the president will come down here to the hangar deck and will make that personal statement to the astronauts. It's quite possible that they will be able to say something to him because they'll be wearing lavalier microphones around their necks, and anything they say will be carried by loudspeaker to those of us gathered here on the hangar deck. Large numbers of sailors behind the lines standing there waiting to watch this historic moment, the first appearance of the astronauts before anybody but the swimmers and the crew of number 66 helicopter. Dr. Don Stolken walking along the blue path. He's the chief of the NASA recovery team on board. Talking now with John Stonecipher, the assistant chief. Helicopter being moved slowly back here with the flight crew, flight deck crew in yellow jerseys. Man up the head about to blow the whistle for it to stop. just about in position. A few more feet. There it goes. That's it. Dr. Stulkin, Dr. Stonecipher personally moved the flight of wooden steps up to the hatch on the starboard side of the helicopter.
The astronauts emerged to take their bows. Ahead was a world tour, but the first to hail them were their own people. People who had an understandable surge of pride when the American flag was raised on the moon.
Waving to the crowd of cheering sailors, moving swiftly into the mobile quarantine facility, Dr. Carpentier following and closing the door. And the door closes. The astronauts are on board. They're in the mobile quarantine facility. The curtains have been drawn. All of them in fine shape, good condition, waving and smiling. You could see them smiling through their masks. Obviously overjoyed, jubilant to be back on board at the end of their historic mission, which saw Armstrong and Aldrin become the first men in history to set foot on the moon. The tunnel is already in place, affixed to the door in the side of the mobile quarantine facility. And when the command module is brought back on board, it will be affixed to the other end of the tunnel. And John Hirosaki, the NASA project engineer inside the mobile quarantine facility, will then be able to go through the tunnel and go back into the command module and remove the lunar samples. Already, the steps, the wooden steps, which they used coming down from the helicopter, are being sprayed with glutaraldehyde, a decontaminant solution. That's one of the procedures established by NASA as a means of preventing contamination by any lunar viruses brought back, if any there are, brought back by the returning astronauts. Well, it was a big moment. It didn't last long. They're already going through the initial procedures inside the mobile quarantine facility.
For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
Every Monday night at 8, A&E journeys down intriguing paths and mystical cultures. Witness the silent secrets of magical places. Mondays at 8.
Okay, kids. Today we're going to demonstrate a discovery that could change your lives. Oh, really?
It's the Nobel Prize-winning discovery by IBM scientists of a more practical superconductor that carries electricity with no resistance and makes magnetic objects defy gravity. This discovery is fascinating not only scientists, but future scientists. Advances in superconductivity. IBM technology at work.
We help more Americans go to college, and we issue more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We also serve millions of customers in every major marketplace worldwide. We're Citicorp and Citibank, America's largest financial services company. Whatever financial success you hope to achieve, whether it's business or personal, we can help you do it, and do it better than anyone else. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. When you're choosing your business wardrobe, selecting everything down to the last detail, don't forget the last detail. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
And the flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
In that week, which President Nixon called the greatest in the history of the world since its creation, it would have been difficult to find three bigger celebrities than the Apollo 11 astronauts. The media were filled with biographical portraits of these modern-day explorers. The following profiles were first aired by NBC as part of its Splashdown coverage.
When Armstrong was growing up here, the town looked pretty much the same. He fished in the Auglaize River, was a science bug in high school, worked afternoons in Brading's drugstore. The family had moved around a lot after Neil's birth in 1930, but they came back to Wapakoneta to stay in 1945. People who remember young Armstrong did not regard him then as someone special, but all their memories are fond ones, and he reciprocates. After Gemini 8, Armstrong came back for a parade and a pageant and found signs bearing his name all over town. "You're my people," he told them. "I'm proud to be one of you." Proudest of all are the residents of 912 Neil Armstrong Drive, Wapakoneta, Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Armstrong.
He was interested in airplanes from the time he was a little boy. His mother bought him a 20-cent airplane in a 10-cent store, and he built that. And then from the 20-cent, he went to a 50-center and went on up, and pretty soon he was building them with motors and flying them and testing them.
And of all the subjects that he took, of course, there was always all the math he could get and all the science he could get. But I can truthfully say he loved school. I think he loved every subject. I really do.
Possibly Neil's outstanding project, for which I remember him best, is his work in connection with study of aviation and the building of a wind tunnel.
Well, he built it so strong that it caused great currents in the home and of course, vibrated the whole home. It was one of those things that he enjoyed most, and Mr. Kreitz, his teacher, was very instrumental in helping him.
We have a small airport just out of town here, about 3 miles, and before Neil was old enough to drive a car, to get his license, he became interested in aviation. He worked at the drugstore, and he'd leave there, take his wheel right out to the airport, and he would talk with those, work with them. And at about 16, then, he bought an old wreck of a plane, which he rebuilt, and he was flying that plane at 16 years of age before he was old enough to get his license.
After he graduated from high school, he decided to go to Purdue University because of the aeronautical program that they offered in a degree.
Armstrong mastered everything that flies. He became a Navy jet pilot, a glider expert, and before becoming an astronaut was one of the top test pilots in the country. He flew both the B-52 mothership and the X-15 rocket plane. He took an X-15 higher than 200,000 feet at a speed of 4,000 miles an hour.
Oh my, I can remember how scared I was when he first flew from the airport to the university. When, let's see, before school started, why they need to go in a week or so ahead of time and make all their preparations. And so he flew this particular time, and I know he said, "Now, Mom, when I go over the house, when I waggle my wings, you know I'm saying hi to you." And so I can remember how scared I was. You know, I said, "Well, how will you find the place to land?" "Oh," he said, "I'll find it." And he did, of course. And of course, you have those fears with each advancement as he went along. Why, you have those same fears, but of course he always was so confident himself that he made us feel like he'd get along all right.
He was a boy that never said much. He just, actions spoke louder than words, and he was always constantly from a little boy off.
Collins had been a wrestler and a baseball and football letterman in high school. At the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston, he vies with astronaut Walter Cunningham for the handball championship. The competition is fierce. Collins usually wins. Collins is 5'11", 165 pounds, looks scrawny, and is balding. He is not talkative, although compared to his companions on Apollo 11, he is garrulous. He is, as most astronauts are, a test pilot. He is an Air Force lieutenant colonel, has 2 daughters and a son, and says he has one overriding concern: all the publicity he will get as a result of the moon mission. Collins is an alumnus of St. Albans School, the rather exclusive academy attached to the Episcopal Cathedral in Washington. President Johnson's daughters went to the Girls' Academy there, and both schools have had more than their share of famous graduates. But Collins is well remembered as person, athlete, and friend.
Mike is a very quiet, I'd characterize him as a kind of fellow who does rather than talks. I first met him in 1944 when we were in school together at St. Albans School in Washington. Mike was extremely well-liked, popular with both the students and the faculty at the school there. He had virtually every honor that a student at that particular school can have. The yearbook is called The Albanian. This is the school seal, and the year, 1948, that Mike graduated. There's Mike, and there's me, and I hope that our taste in ties has improved since then. Here's a picture as Mike is a member of the Athletic Association that governed the giving of letters and athletic awards. Here's a page listing the varsity letter winners. Showed that he lettered in football and was captain of the wrestling team with a star to show that he wrestled in the Lehigh tournament. And here's a picture of the baseball team. And here's Mike right on the end. They're wearing a very determined look on his face.
The St. Albans class prophecy said Collins would be a soldier. That was safe. His father was a general. His uncle was the famous General Lightning Joe Collins. His older brother is a brigadier general of paratroops.
I think Michael always had in mind that he wanted to be in the military service, particularly to go to West Point. And I think that he, during this time, before he went to West Point, he spent a great deal of his time and effort in preparing himself for a military career.
He was bound for West Point from the day he was born, as far as I know. Certainly all the time I knew him.
Michael hasn't talked to us terribly much about what he desired to do in the astronaut program itself. I think primarily because he's been pretty busy being an astronaut, and the rest of us have been pretty busy doing other things. But I do know that he at one point told me he wanted to be the outside man on the moon.
32 years ago, the Edgemont School presented The Wizard of Oz. In the title role was the future Air Force Colonel, MIT PhD, and man on the moon, Edwin Aldrin, Jr. 10 years later, he was a handsome young man near the head of his high school class and all New Jersey center on the undefeated Montclair football team.
He was a real tiger in sports and gymnastics, starting at, whatever level boys start playing football. He had to have the helmet and the pads and the shirt to be one of the guys. His interest in football, which having started at a young, tender age, continued through high school and on into West Point, although he never was a star of the West Point team.
He went direct from high school into West Point and was #1 in his class the first year. He graduated third in the class of 1951. His interest in flying, as far as I know, developed at West Point because it was before his graduation he chose to be commissioned in the Air Force and then went into his flying. I presume that he got his interest to some degree because he had flights with me, and saw something about flying.
Aldrin was his father's son. He took to flying naturally, and soon after winning his wings, he was sent to Korea. That war was just ending, but Aldrin shot down 2 enemy MiGs and got his name in print.
He went, I think it was Christmas Day out of California of 1952. The interesting thing about his Korean experience was when friends called my attention to the Life magazine that came out showing that he had made the picture of the week, because when he shot down this MiG, his gun camera got the first evidence of the type of ejection that the pilot of the MiG used. It was the first time they knew that the MiG used powder to blow the pilot out of his seat.
One weekend he arrived at a local Air Force base to spend some time with us, and he streaked down in a shiny jet with his helmet and flight suit on, and the boys couldn't have been pulled away from that sight. It made their father have a little tough image to fight because he wasn't able to arrive in the jet that night. The weekend was spent by the boys wearing the helmet and looking at themselves in the mirror or sharing it with their friends. That afternoon, the older boy had a baseball game, and he brought the entire team over just to stand back and watch him.
For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
How well you carry yourself in business often depends on what you carry in business. Cambridge Business Wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge Business Wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
Behind every legend lies an untold story. Now, every Tuesday and Sunday night, great lives become great entertainment with A&E's biography series.
IBM technology is helping to explore the Earth's crust. Conventional methods probe to about 5 miles. But at Cornell University, an IBM supercomputing system analyzes seismic data at such high speed, geologists are now charting the Earth's crust 20, 25, even 30 miles deep. In geology, in other sciences, and in business, supercomputing is another example of IBM technology at work.
And the flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
During the remarkable 8-day journey of Apollo 11, the world was united in prayer for the safe return of the astronauts. And just as repeated television replays had hammered home the fact that men had actually walked on the moon, network newscasts played and replayed the re-entry and recovery of the capsule, assuring the audience that its heroes had come safely back to Earth after conquering the heavens.
Yes, we see it. We see it. Here it is. Apollo 11 coming right down toward the prime recovery zone. It isn't red anymore because the skies are that light, momentarily behind a puffy gray cloud, but it's there.
Apollo 11 should be on main chutes now.
And the flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
Mission Control Houston has now stepped out of the picture, and it is now up to the recovery forces out in the Pacific. They are in control of the Apollo operation from now on. Now the three astronauts and the big man, the man who tossed them their biological isolation garments, Lieutenant Clancy Heidelberg, all four men in the raft, decontaminating each other, scrubbing each other down with disinfectant, and it could be a rather comical sight, and I should imagine that they will have to be very careful that they don't flip that raft over. We had a flip over on Apollo 9, and they're going to be quite agile there in getting themselves scrubbed down without and still maintaining their balance. The crew on the helicopter that is standing by is piloted by Don S. Jones of Madison, Wisconsin. Lieutenant J.G. Bruce Johnson of Bremerton, Washington is the co-pilot. And the two crewmen standing at the open door that and operating the winches and hoist. These crewmen are Chief Petty Officer Norval Wood of Carmi, Illinois, and Chief Petty Officer Stanley Robnett of Cortales, New Mexico. First astronaut climbing into the net. There he goes. First astronaut on his way to the helicopter. We don't know which one it is. We just don't know yet which one it is. He's suspended from the helicopter, hovering over the raft, 40 feet above. The helicopter's 40 feet above. There are two men inside the helicopter operating the winch and to help the astronaut, Chief Petty Officer Norval Wood and Chief Petty Officer Stanley Robnett. First astronaut now inside the helicopter. We don't know which one. Astronaut is in the helicopter. The net is on its way down. 40 feet separate the helicopter and the spacecraft, the surface of the water. Number 2 astronaut now going up. But again, it is not possible to identify the astronauts in the order in which they are going into the spacecraft, or into the helicopter. Swimmer, Lieutenant Clancy Heidelberg, remains in the raft. Third and final astronaut now in midair on the 40-foot lift into the helicopter. He's just suspended in midair there, sitting there in pendulum fashion. Now it's the hoist is operating again. Now he's almost to the doorway. And the third astronaut is inside the helicopter. All three now can return to the Hornet. All three of them wearing their special biological garments.
It went very, very well.
What was your total time, Don?
Gee, I'd have to look at the log sheet, Dallas. I don't know, but I feel we're about 5 or 6 minutes ahead of our schedule. It just couldn't have gone more smoothly. Chief Wood here did a magnificent job, and Chief Robnett, who is still locked up in the airplane, also did well.
Chief Wood, did you have a chance to say anything to the astronauts? Did they say anything to you?
No, sir. With the bigs on, they couldn't have heard me, and with the headset we had on, I couldn't hear anything they said. Their actions indicated they were cheerful all the way through the entire procedure.
Was there any sort of message that they conveyed in some way or other to you?
No, sir. We didn't really have time. We were too busy trying to get our gear together to get back on board.
Lieutenant Johnson, you probably got a look at them. You were flying co-pilot.
Yes, I was. I looked back as we got out of the helicopter, and one of them gave me a thumbs up. That's the only signal I got from them. They sure looked cheerful, though. Glad to get back. Boy, it's a big thrill for me to pick them up, too.
Was there any complications at any point, Don?
None whatsoever, Dallas. It just went very, very smoothly. Better than the Simex we had 2 days ago. So I was
Well, it could
very
hardly go
pleased.
any better than that.
No, it couldn't. No, I was very pleased. Exactly according to plan, and of course, it's a great sense of relief to us to know that it was done and done well. So we're satisfied.
Well, you've now performed your second manned spacecraft recovery.
This is the third one for HS4. As you know, Chuck Smiley had the last one on 10, and we had 8.
You yourself.
So it's a big accomplishment for the squadron, and we're all real proud of it.
What do you think will happen to helicopter number 66 now? Will it be put in some special place?
Well, as I told you, my junior officer suggested it be bronzed and put in the Smithsonian. No, I don't think so. It's still a real good flying machine, and we'll get a lot of use out of it.
I suspect it still has a good many flying hours ahead of it.
Sure does. Sure does.
Well, Don, congratulations again,
Thank you very
Lieutenant
much,
Johnson,
Don.
Chief Wood. Thank you very much. And congratulations also to Chief Rob Nett.
Thank you.
Chief Rob Nett is still inside the helicopter, which very soon now will be moved back up to the flight deck and will be moved back toward the fantail, and then will be sealed after Chief Rob Nett is out of it, and will be pumped full of formaldehyde gas and left to sit there for a couple of hours as an additional measure against possible decontamination. Hornet +3. The slogan of this carrier throughout the Apollo 11 cruise, the slogan has now been fulfilled. Hornet has fulfilled its mission, and it has picked up 3 additional men. So it's Hornet +3. Now down there below the window, very shortly now, will be affixed the presidential seal in advance of President Nixon's arrival. Those 2 significant signs will, in essence, sum up this mission in its very briefest form. Hornet +3. Hornet has recovered the 3 astronauts back from the moon, and President Nixon, signaling the importance of this great moment in the history of manned space flight, will be coming down to congratulate the astronauts in person.
Dallas, the Hornet started out with 2,222 people on board, and now the 3 more.
Actually, it has a good many more than that at the moment, but some of them, in fact, all of the new arrivals will be leaving shortly.
Splashdown, as it happened, will continue in a moment.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
How well you carry yourself in business often depends on what you carry in business. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
You already know where to look for the finest in comedy, drama, documentaries, and the performing arts. Now take a look at the all-new A&E Program Guide. It's full-size and in full color, and chock full of new and expanded features that will guide you through the exciting variety of entertainment you've come to expect from A&E. Each new guide offers monthly program highlights, program and celebrity close-ups, insightful feature articles, colorful prime-time schedules, descriptive daily listings, and a preview of what's coming next month. The A&E Program Guide is available monthly at the rate of $18 per year. To begin your subscription, send a check or money order to A&E Program Guide, P.O. Box 2094, Mahopac, New York 10541. Or simply use your Visa or MasterCard and call 1-800-228-2787 toll-free. Get the source, the A&E Program Guide, and keep abreast of the finest programs television has to offer.
As it happened, July 24th, 1969, now continues.
you buzz and mic, I want you to know that I think I'm the luckiest man in the world. And I say this not only because I have the honor to be President of the United States, but particularly because I have the privilege of speaking for so many and welcoming you back to Earth. I could tell you about all the messages we've received in Washington. Over 100 foreign governments, emperors and presidents and prime ministers and kings have sent the most warm messages that we've ever received. They represent over 2 billion people on this earth, all of them who have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done. And then I also bring you messages from members of the cabinet and members of the Senate and members of the House and the Space Agency, from the streets of San Francisco, where people stopped me a few days ago, and you all love that city, I know, as I do. But most important, I had a telephone call yesterday. The toll wasn't incidentally as great as the one I made to you fellows on the moon. I made that correct, incidentally, in case you didn't know. But I called three of, in my view, three of the greatest ladies and most courageous ladies in the whole world today, your wives. And from Jan and Joan and Pat, I bring their love and their congratulations. We think it's just wonderful that they could have participated, at least through television, in this return. We're only sorry they couldn't be here. And also, I've got to let you in a little secret. I made a date with them. I invited them to dinner on the 13th of August, right after you come out of quarantine. It will be a state dinner held in Los Angeles. The governors of all the 50 states will be there, the ambassadors, others from around the world and in America. And they told me that you would come too. And all I want to know, will you come? We want to honor you then.
We'll do anything you say, Mr. President. Anytime.
One question I think that all of us would like to ask, as we saw you bouncing around in that boat out there, I wonder if that wasn't the hardest part of the journey. Was that the only, did any of you get seasick?
No, we didn't, and it was one of the harder parts, but it was one of the most pleasant, we can assure you.
Yeah. Well, I just know that you can sense what we all sense when you get back now. Have you been able to follow some of the things that happened when you've gone? Did you know about the All-Star game?
Yes, sir. The capsule communicators have been giving us daily news reports.
Yeah. Were you American League or National League?
I'm a National League man.
Non-partisan, sir. Yeah, that's right. There's the politician in the group, right.
Well, yeah, you missed that game.
Yeah. Well, you knew that too. You really
heard that.
Yeah, the rain.
The rain.
Right.
Well, we haven't learned to control the weather yet, but that's something we can look forward to tomorrow's challenge.
Right. Well, I can only summarize it because I don't want to hold you now. You have so much more to do, and gee, you look great. You feel as good as you feel great.
I feel just perfect, Mr. President.
Yeah. I understand Frank Borman says you're a little younger by reason of having going into space. Is that right? Do you feel that way, a little younger?
Well, a lot younger than Frank Borman.
There he is over there. Come on over, Frank, so they can see you. And you going to take that lying down? Or they got...
It looks like he has aged in the last couple of weeks.
Come on, Frank.
Mr. President, the one thing I wanted, we have a poet in Mike Collins, and he really gave me a hard time for describing the words of fantastic and beautiful. And I counted them. In 3 minutes up there, you used 4 fantastics and 2 beautifuls.
Well, just let me close off with this one thing. I was thinking, as you know, as you came down, and we knew it was a success, and it had only been 8 days, just a week, a long week. But this is the greatest week in the history of the world since the creation. Because as a result of what happened in this week, the world is bigger, infinitely. And also, as I'm going to find on this trip around the world, and as Secretary Rogers will find as he covers the other countries in Asia, as a result of what you've done, the world's never been closer together before. And we just thank you for that. And I only hope that all of us in government, all of us in America, that as a result of what you've done, we can do our job a little better. We can reach for the stars just as you have reached so far from the stars. We don't want to hold you any longer. Anybody have a last word? How about promotions? Do you think we could arrange something?
We're just pleased to be back and very honored that you were so kind as to come out here and welcome us back. And we look forward to getting out of this quarantine and talking without having glass between us.
All right. And incidentally, the speeches that you have to make at this dinner can be very short. And if you want to say fantastic or beautiful, that's all right with us. Don't try to think of any new adjectives. They've all been said. And now I think, incidentally, that all of us the millions that are seeing us on television now, seeing you, would feel as I do that, in a sense, our prayers have been answered. And I think it would be very appropriate if Chaplain Pierto, the chaplain of this ship, were to offer a prayer of thanksgiving. And if he would step up now, Chaplain, thank you.
Let us pray. Lord God, our Heavenly Father, our minds are staggered and our spirits exultant with the magnitude and precision of this entire Apollo 11 mission. We have spent the past week in communal anxiety and hope as our astronauts sped through the glories and dangers of the heavens. As we try to understand and analyze the scope of this achievement for human life, our reason is overwhelmed with abounding gratitude and joy, even as we realize the increasing challenges of the future. This magnificent event illustrates anew what man can accomplish when purpose is firm and intent corporate. A man on the moon was promised in this decade, and though some were unconvinced, the reality is with us this morning in the persons of astronauts Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. We applaud their splendid exploits, and we pour out our thanksgiving for their safe return to us, to their families, to all mankind. From our inmost beings, we sing humble yet exuberant praise. May the great effort and commitment seen in this Project Apollo inspire our lives to move similarly in other areas of need. May we, the people, by our enthusiasm and devotion and insight, move to new landings in brotherhood, human concern, and mutual respect. May our country, afire with inventive leadership and backed by a committed followership, blaze new trails into all areas of human cares. See our enthusiasm and bless our joy with dedicated purpose toward the many needs at hand. Link us in friendship with peoples throughout the world as we strive together to better the human condition. Grant us peace, beginning in our own hearts, and a mind attuned with goodwill towards our neighbor. All this we pray as our thanksgiving rings out to Thee, in the name of our Lord. Amen.
Amen. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
A city where treasures of art and antiquity prevail. The classical beauty of Florence, Italy on Chronicle on A&E.
Tomorrow. You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
What gives you lots of hot water, the lowest cost way?
Nothing does it like gas.
What lets you wash for less money to save every day?
Nothing does it like gas.
What heats water so efficiently it's half the cost of electricity?
Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas. For hot water, for cooking, home heating, or drying. Nothing does it, no, nothing does it like gas.
America's best energy value.
This year, the best-dressed people in business are all wearing the same thing. Cambridge business wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear. When you're choosing your business wardrobe, selecting everything down to the last detail, don't forget the last detail. Cambridge Business Wear from Meade. As important to the way you look as the clothes you wear.
These kindergartners are using an IBM learning program called Writing to Read. Through computers and other tools, it's helping children across the country learn to read as much as 2 grade levels above the national average.
I see a tiger. A tiger sees me. Tigers live in the zoo. The end.
To learn more, write IBM, Box 446, Montvale, New Jersey.
And the flight of Apollo 11 is over. The men are on the ocean.
The president then left on his trip around the world. The Hornet is sailing to Honolulu. It arrives there tomorrow. And from there, the astronauts in their sealed container will be flown to Houston, where a somewhat roomier quarantine building awaits them. So far, there is no evidence whatever of any infection or of any unwholesome effects from the moon. If it turns out, as everyone expects, that there won't be any, then Apollo 11 will have been a rarity in human affairs, a total success, and a credit to the American people and to the human race.
Even in the distant future, when Vietnam is just one line on the list of American wars, historians will have to say something about man's first step on the moon. Anyone who is now too old to be trusted, over 30 that is, has seen some history made, but in most cases he probably didn't know it. It is hard to tell what will be history until it is history. And for most of us, that's too long to wait. Whoever may have been standing or idling about the docks in Palos, in Spain, in 1492, watching an Italian captain sail away in 3 leaky boats with a quarrelsome crew, certainly didn't know what they were seeing. The Italian captain didn't know himself. And now, when a highway department finally builds a 2-lane bridge over some muddy creek, and a small-town mayor comes out to cut the ribbon and to make a speech while the high school band plays Under the Double Eagle, the mayor says, as he almost has to say, that history has been made here today. Well, a first is a first, and it can only be done once. And to say that somebody is about to land on the moon and walk around on it while almost everybody on Earth watches is just about too much to swallow. I almost don't even believe it. But it's true. And if this is not a permanent, enduring event in human history, then nothing is. And it certainly will be remembered as long as mankind remembers anything.
The moon. For centuries, poets have rhapsodized over it. Lovers have swooned by its silvery light. Men of imagination have long fantasized about reaching it. More than 100 years ago, Jules Verne imagined that Americans would be the first to land there, traveling in a spacecraft that would splash down in the Pacific Ocean. Not a bad call. Mr. Verne also anticipated television. He would hardly have been surprised that television and Apollo 11 would be so closely aligned. Walter Cronkite called the combination of the medium and the moonwalk the most dramatic coupling of events in man's history. David Brinkley called it a combination of romance and technology that closed the gap between imagination and reality. Now, in the summer of 1989, as the space probe Magellan streaks toward Venus to map its terrain, we wonder how long it will be before an emissary from Earth walks on another planet. Watching Apollo 11's pioneering voyage of discovery, we get the sense that the realm of human possibility is as limited